Hey, you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
We are
It is
perky
another.
today.
What's that? We're
We're perky today, apparently.
very perky. It's Thursday. I like to affectionately call it Baby Friday, because it helps. It helps give you a little bit of perspective of something to focus on. We're
Something to look
today
forward
we're
to.
back. Exactly. Yeah. So today we're back for another a conversation that I have personally been looking forward to for since we've been working on this internally, and we just want to put something out there and let you know a couple things. First of all, everything that we bring to these discussions and to this podcast are things that we are talking about, that we are working through, that we are also evolving as they're happening. But they're also things that come up with the people that we coach. We recognize that we are one of the things about, I think, life is that we think that we're the only one, right? That's like a really great way to keep isolated from change and to fight back change, is to think that we're the only person that experiences this or feels this. And once we start to realize that that there are stories that like what we talked about on Tuesday. And if you haven't seen or listened to that episode, please check it out. It was a really great episode. We start to recognize them, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So today, we're going to be talking about practical things that you can do based on actual psychological truths, and on this is
I thought you were going to say traumas.
On what? Psychological
I thought you were going to say psychological traumas.
traumas. Well, originally, maybe yes. But this is built on we're going to understand how you can, when you have that moment in your story, whether something triggers or activates it, how can you interrupt that? But before we get into the meat and potatoes, as my father loves, let's talk about what's coming up next week. Who would like to share about our upcoming free workshop that we have coming up on June 5th?
June 5th. I can do that. When you pointed, it's good in this direction.
No, I never know
that the
which
right
way to
direction?
point.
Which side are you standing on? Well, thank you. And I'm happy to do so. So we are going to have a 90-minute workshop.
Mhm.
It is free. So we are opening it to everyone so that
Yep.
the opportunity is there for anybody who would like to join us. And the intention of it is really to be building your skills, not just as a leader, but in your life. So we're taking a lot of this work that we've been doing, as you said, Crystal, and incorporating it into the training and development curriculum that we are building. And this is an opportunity to try it on.
Mhm.
Get a chance to learn some of our most recent information, some of our most recent content. Have a couple of exercises, because it's very interactive, and have the opportunity to observe or be coached in a live session, because we wrap all of that into 90 minutes and promise that you will walk away with something, a tool that you can use immediately in your life and in your work. So that is on June 5th, which is a Wednesday, and it starts at 11 a.m. Pacific, I believe.
Yeah. And you can sign up for that over on our website, and you can find us at wholehumancoaching.com.
I think we should add that we're also shaking it up a little bit, aren't we? I mean, I think one of the things that we've discovered or that has kind of emerged in the last few months of our work, both when we're talking to ourselves and when we're talking with our clients, is that there is a requirement to go beyond the coaching session, to go beyond the teamwork and beyond the sort of the leadership development traditional scopes, because the world has become so complex, and there's so much more to deal with than in the past. So we're trying to go beyond the boundaries of the traditional models and the traditional development styles.
It feeds this conversation, because some of what we have realized in our conversations with our clients and with each other is that some of the old leadership development, all the personal development, it's 20, 30 years old.
Yeah.
And that may have worked then, but we're in a different era. We're in a different time, and it calls us to be different. So
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to note as we're going into this that it may have worked for a certain group of people. And what we realize is that we are about in the very how we talk about whole human, we're about humanity, and we're about people having equal access to their own abilities to be able to not just change their life, but to build the life that they want and become the person that they know they're capable of becoming.
Mhm.
So,
And also
oh,
also access to like the new ways of being, right?
mhm, mhm,
That are you know, 5 or 10 or 20 years ago might have seemed woo woo,
mhm.
but are now really coming into the mainstream. So we are picking up that rope, picking up that, I don't know, picking something
Thread,
up.
thread.
Anyway,
Picking up
thread.
thread.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, new ways of being, which are actually old ways of being, right? And it's like a
Yes, exactly.
reclaim that when we talk about reclaiming our humanity, and
Yeah.
that is what we're talking about. Okay, so
Yes.
speaking of that, da, da,
Mhm,
Go.
da, let's
Fire
get
away.
down to meat and potatoes, friends.
mhm.
Okay, so we have stories we've established and we know, and anybody who's listening would understand this to a certain degree. There we can find ourselves where there's something that happens, and we'll call that a data point in our lives. An incident happens, a conversation, something that is like an inciting incident in our life, and there is we can have a reaction, but there also can be a story that we take away from that. So it could be something little, or it could be something big, like what we've talked about in the past, everything around our sense of worth, around shame, around old habits, around finances, scarcity, all
Guilt,
those things. Guilt.
fear,
Yeah,
worry, all those
exactly.
delicious
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
Yeah, all those juicy topics. So, and when we talk about, well, you can change the story that you're telling yourself. We're saying that, but we don't want people to think that we're being trite when we say that.
Mm.
We're not saying, well, just change it. Like, good luck, just change it. Like, it's your problem.
It's
Today, we
that
want
it's
to,
that it's that really easy sort of just think positive, right?
yeah,
And you'll
yeah,
be fine. And that doesn't
exactly.
work anymore.
No, it doesn't. Never did really. But yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
today we want to talk about what are some tools that people can use. So we each have some tools that we want to share that are either they're personal to us, or that we are all in agreement they work really well, and that we believe it serves people well for them to understand how they can use them all the time. Anytime. They cost no money. They don't cost anything other than a willingness to try them. So
Mhm.
Carol, I would love to hear from you first. What is one of the tools that you recommend that people use to interrupt the story?
Well, to begin with, I think the most important thing is that what you said is these are accessible.
Mhm.
So this is something you can pull on in the moment. You don't have to go on a retreat. You don't
Yeah.
have to take a long course. This is not a 6-month or year-long or 5-year-long study. This is what can you do in the moment. And that's what we begin to do is use these micro actions. And the terminology may not be really applicable to everything, but what it is baby steps.
Mhm.
This is where we get to do something in the moment that is different.
Mhm.
So it's recognizing a story and doing something different right then. So
Yeah.
if you notice that somebody says something to you and you immediately have the thought, "Oh, I'm really annoyed by that." And you get to notice the sensation that annoying gives you in your body.
Mm.
Then what you can do is you can simply pause and take a deep breath. This is probably the very simplest micro
Mm.
action that you can take. I had a coach years ago who said, "There's nothing that can't be changed in 3 deep breaths."
Ooh.
So this is
Mm.
the simplest thing you can do is remember to breathe.
Mhm.
So whatever's happening, whether it's excitement or upset or anger, the first thing to do is to notice and take a breath.
Mhm. Yeah.
Very straightforward.
Mhm. Taking note. And I
Mhm.
think also um, that moment where you take that breath, or you have the pause. We called it a pause. We did an episode about the pause.
Mhm.
Is also a moment where curiosity can spark. And so I can share that when I experience that, now, because I've almost like created a habit loop around that as much as I can. I'm not always great with it. I do have a teenager. But one of the things that I think about is the curiosity question, be like, I wonder why that's what I feel first, or I wonder where that feeling comes from, or that thought. I wonder if there's a different way that I can think about that. And that is not that's not a magical formula. That's just something we get to do over and over again. Micro actions. They may seem small, but they can radically change how you show up for yourself in the world.
And you can begin to reward yourself for that. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I stopped. I took a breath,
Oh,
and just
yeah.
be grateful for your remembering of it, and be
Mhm.
gentle if you didn't in that moment.
Mhm.
That it comes 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, I forgot to breathe. Then you need to
I
come
think
back and just forgive yourself.
it's
Yeah.
really important to be kind and gentle to yourself these days. There
Yeah.
is enough, there's enough outside of you that is not kind and gentle right now, that it's so important in those moments to turn up the volume on that,
Mhm.
that element that you just mentioned, Carol.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Colin, for that. Now you're under the spotlight.
Oh,
I
under the
want to hear from
spotlight.
you.
I'm ready this time. I couldn't talk about the workshop. I would have fumbled my words, but that idea of stopping, right, is for me is one of the biggest things. That idea of pattern, not pattern recognition, but interruption, right?
Mhm.
And I think, just to add to what you were saying, Carol, there are practices that you can have and do and bring into your life, again, completely for free, and do them at any time. And they're around meditation and mindfulness, right? And if you can begin that practice, right, even just with a few minutes a day, it can change a lot for you. But if you can begin to bring in mindfulness and meditation, you can catch yourself in those moments where you are judgmental towards yourself, where you are reactive towards yourself or towards others, where you are um, where you are in a situation that might be, yeah, for sure, a difficult, challenging moment, but you can change. What you have the power to change is your attitude towards that situation.
Mhm.
You're the one in charge. So stopping the pattern, being mindful of it, and being able to understand that, again, you're in charge. You hold the power of your own reactivity.
Yeah.
So that's something that I only really learned quite recently, diving in finally into the practice of meditation in recent years.
Yeah.
It
Um,
changes everything.
It
It does.
does.
It really
Yeah.
does. So one of the things for me is, and this is not meant to be a scary thing, but it's radical accountability. And so when I say that, I don't mean that I just lay out my shizzle in all the time, emotionally or whatever. What it really means is that I have people in my life that I meet with regularly. In fact, for me, it's actually every morning for 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Um, and they call me out on things. So
Mm.
not just call me out, like look for things, but like call me, and not to find fault with me, but to be like, why do you say that about yourself? Or where did that story come from? This morning in my conversation, there was a radical accountability moment where I realized something that I'd been tolerating. And my friend in this conversation said, yeah, but have you ever thought about why you tolerate that? I needed that. I needed someone to help outside of that. So radical accountability also comes to me through coaching,
Mhm.
through coaches. I have had coaches all for a big portion of my career. I coach a lot of other people in the same way. But we need to have people that we give them permission to be able to hold us accountable to who we want to be.
Mhm.
So it's not about finding, and we can maybe maybe a story that you have is that being that being accountable is going to be scary. Rather,
Yes.
but I don't feel that way. I feel like being
Mm.
accountable with the right people makes me feel safe. It actually, I
Mhm.
feel safe and I feel affirmed through it because I know that I'm in a trusted relationship. And that makes a big difference. And that's a huge one because they can see the stories that I'm perpetuating that I may not be aware of at the time.
It's
Yes.
accountability without judgment, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So important.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, absolutely. And when you have that kind of trusted relationship, you can then stretch yourself because you're being given that
Mhm.
opportunity to reflect and go, "Oh, yeah, well, maybe," and then figure out how you could do things differently.
Yeah.
But there is that loving aspect to
Mhm.
it. And I
Mhm.
think that is in a coaching relationship or in a personal relationship. If you've got someone who is going to help you be accountable, that radical
Mhm.
accountability, that there is an element of kindness to it.
Yeah.
It's not being done just to call you out and to make you wrong.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, Carol, you also have a tool that you have used with us and that we use on our coaches, but you're the one that taught me about this tool. So can you share about it?
Is this the name it, flip it, that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes we need to actually own up to what's going on in our
Mhm.
stories, and we need to be able to name it. And sometimes this takes somebody else to work with, but we can do this work on our own. And that's the beauty of it, is that all of these things that we're talking about can be done by yourself in 5 minutes. But what it is to name what's going on, to name the situation, to say it out loud, to speak it, to say what it is that you're observing. And then the opportunity is to flip it. So if you were to look at the positive opposite of that,
Mhm.
so if we use the example of perhaps you're a procrastinator, oh, I didn't get that done. I'm always so late. I'm always so behind. And you flip it to, oh, I wonder what life would be like if I
Right.
was always ahead of the deadline, if I had the room or the breathing room. And then you
Mhm.
frame it for what's possible. So you name it, you flip it to the positive opposite of that, and then you frame it in something that's workable. Huh, it feels really good when I actually take a step ahead of the deadline. So this week, I'm going to move ahead in this project. So you again, it goes back to baby steps. But the first part that's really important is to name what's going on in clear language. So it's not fuzzy, it's not something that you're putting behind you, you actually turning and looking at it, but flipping it to the positive opposite. What would it be like if this wasn't present in my life? So the positive opposite of it,
Yes.
and then figure out a way, one
Mhm.
little tiny step that you could move towards it.
That's
Interesting
good.
tool.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tool. Okay, so we've talked about some of the those are also tools that are they are things that we can think through, that we can rationalize, or that we can put in place.
More
However,
conventional.
conventional.
Yeah.
They're tactical tools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, there's also a set of tools that is really important for us to talk about for a minute. That is about our nervous system and about how stories can trigger something because there's stories are so powerful. Like stories are like the
Mhm.
secret sauce of life, right? And when we perpetuate a story, our nervous system also it's almost like our nervous system regulates to that whatever that story is and however we're resonating with it. So if the story is about fear, our nervous system gets into a place of fear in alignment with that story.
Yes.
I'm not doing a great job at explaining it, but that's kind of what I would how I would frame that particular thing. So there are instances when we can feel like what you said earlier, Carol, we can feel something in our body. We can feel that something's we can maybe we feel hopeless, we feel discouraged, we feel depressed. I don't know, put in whatever, pick
Mhm.
your poison in this category. What are some things that people can do to help be kind to themselves through the power of their nervous system to give them the space to be able to recognize that this is a story that's not serving me.
Mhm. I think this where it comes in, Colin,
Mm.
about what you do
Mhm.
for yourself, because this takes a physical action.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes, for sure. I mean, certainly in my case, in recent years, I discovered sound therapy
Mhm.
and really, and things like sound baths. And they have such a profound effect on your physique and on your body.
Mm.
Mhm.
And they have an ability in a very, very short period of time to bring down the energy level around those things that we mentioned before anxiety, reactivity, fear, worry, anger, rage, all of those emotions that don't add much value to your day, for sure. So for me, it's listening to things like solfeggio frequencies, and there's various frequencies mean different things, or send different signals to your body, and you can explore them on YouTube and Spotify for free, and lots of other places. So that's what I do. And often I combine a sound bath with a forest, what they call it forest bathing, but it's a walk in the forest, right? And I live in the sticks in the country, so I have a forest nearby, but you could also find some trees, a park. You could also get beside water, or a lake or a stream or a river. There's that connectivity, or that combination of sound, healing sounds and healing tones, plus nature is extremely powerful, at least for me.
It's very powerful. I live in the city. I live in downtown Toronto, and I am blessed to live beside a park, and we have trees in our backyard. But one of the things for me is birdsong. You guys have heard me. I'm a big preacher about the power of birdsong, and you can just Google bird songs and find them on YouTube, and I will play it. And I can tell you a situation 2 days ago that I actually used this. There's something that happened. There's a message that came through, and it sparked an anger in me. And I thought, I'm not going to respond to this. And I literally put my headphones in, and I just cranked up the YouTube bird song. And I just listened to the birds tweeting while I was just like working. And I felt myself, it was like, I wish there was like a way to actually visually see how the thermometer kind of started to come down. And after a few minutes, things started to clear. Now, not everybody's going to be at that place, because you may not have, like, that's also from using it often in the tools. But I do have to say, what you're saying, Colin, is so true in so many ways. And it may sound like something that's very exotic to think about forest bathing, but really exactly what you mean. The power of green, the power of nature, the power of the sounds of nature. If you can't access it, if you're in a condo downtown in the middle of a metropolis, we still have tools to be able to access it. And every time we do, we remind ourselves that we are connected. We're connected to the earth. We're connected to each other. It's very powerful.
And there is a physical action to it as well. And even if it was as simple as stand up, put your earphones in, that alone, that stand up, turn around and sit down again, if that's all that you can accomplish in that moment, you have shifted your perspective. This is the neuroscience of it. Literally,
Change.
when we move our body, we're shifting something in our internal way of being.
Yeah.
So in that moment, we can recover, we can reclaim, we can come back to who we want to be.
Yeah. And we can remind ourselves that it's the best way forward is through being kind, right? Being kind to our bodies, to ourselves. And when we know how to do that to ourselves, it helps us be kind to other people, because then it's just a reflection of who we already are. And I think that is a fantastic, it's a fantastic habit to have as humans. And it's also an incredible way to be with each other as well, and to be able to share those things together. So we're about to sign off, but I would love to hear one more thought from each of you about what is one thing in one sentence or something that when you recognize you've changed the story, what's it given you? What has been the gift that it's given you?
I think the magic of this comes in retrospect. It comes in being able to look at maybe your journal or having a conversation with a friend and realizing how far you've come. So 3, 6 months or a year later, just to look back and go, wow, I have actually shifted who I am.
Yeah. Isn't that powerful? Yeah.
For me, it's a matter of recognizing that it really does not matter. Because if you look back in time and at all the moments that you've worried or felt guilty or felt mad or been full of rage or in sort of those negative places, they're all gone, right? So what's the point? Is it serving you? No. So like Joe Dispenza says, change. Right?
Yeah. 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 And I think for me, it has given me the ability to be kind to myself. And and that gives me the lens to see other people very differently too. To see them through that lens.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's powerful.
So we're going to continue this conversation, aren't we, on Tuesday? Because
Yeah,
stories are, full of chapters and and books. So I guess maybe a leaflet if you're telling yourself a small story. But on Tuesday we're going to dive into language.
Yes.
And how the language that you choose in your stories is even more impactful than the chapter, right?
Oh, yes.
Thanks. Yeah.
Great. Well, have a happy, I guess it feels like Friday. I mean,
it does. It's Baby Friday.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. And
for joining us. Yeah.
And
if you like the show, don't forget to like and share because good things deserve to be shared. And so if this has been helpful for you, please be helpful for someone else and share it out with them. And you can find out more about us at wholehumancoaching.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.